just to be able to experience another day that God did not see fit. It's so interesting, and uh, the longer you're around, the older you get, if you will. It's like the more you're able to, in spite of the aches and pains, and in spite of forgetting little things, it's in those moments where you begin to understand and just appreciate the time that you've had and the time that you have. And so I'm grateful, and I know that that statement I just made. I'm almost not worthy to make it, but I began to understand what my grandfather speaks about when he says, "Son, just keep on living." And so I am grateful. I am grateful to be able to keep on living. Well, listen, I know that there are agendas. We got Super Bowl parties. We got Valentine's things. We have all these checklists items that we need to do. And so we're going to go ahead and get into what thus says the Lord on this morning. And so this morning we're going to preach, and we're going to teach from a subject or a thought, or more appropriately, a question. And that question is, who has your heart? Who has your heart? And the text that we'll be using to unpack all of this will come from the book of Proverbs, the fourth chapter, verses 13 through 23. Once again, who has your heart? Proverbs, the fourth chapter, verses 13 through 23. And so here we are now on this Sunday morning, and in approximately 48 hours, it will be Valentine's Day. And because it falls on a Tuesday this year, most folks have already celebrated it over the course of the weekend. If you were out and about and you happen to drive by restaurants, you would see that the restaurants were buzzing and bustling, and there were people out everywhere because people were trying to get their Valentine's Day celebration in the books this weekend. And so the reality, or the thought process of Valentine's, it leads me to ask the question this morning: who or what has your heart? Again, who or what has your heart? And the interesting thing about Valentine's Day is that Valentine's Day is always filled with this talk of love. Listen, some of you have already or will celebrate the gift of love found in your marriages, with your soon to be spouses, with your right now happen to be bae, with your children, and with your parents. Listen, and rightfully so, you have reason to celebrate when love finds its way into your life. But I want to submit to you this morning, however, and ever so unfortunately, many times the love that accompanies, the love that goes along with, the love that walks hand in hand with Valentine's Day, so many times will end up as a victory for the enemy. And defeat for some of our lives, and some of us will still be feeling the impact of it a few weeks later. Why? Why? Because our desire for romance, our desire for love, our desire for companionship will cause, and has already caused, some of us already, to open the door to allow the enemy to come into our lives. Listen, can I tell you that there are so many lives that have been lost, and so many lives that have been destroyed in the name of love? You see that little dude in a diaper dressed in red and white, and he has that little bow and arrow. He has probably done in just as many people as the other little dude dressed in red with the pitchfork on Valentine's Day and Valentine's weekend. Listen, and look, How many of you know? How many of you have lived long enough to understand that improper love will make you lose your mind? Listen, improper love will have you looking into a mirror and you don't even know the person that is looking right back at you. See, the truth is, love will cause you to see things that aren't really there. Love will make you believe things that you already know aren't believable. Love will make you attempt to rationalize the incomprehensible. Love, Love. See, love will even take a bright, intelligent person and cause them to make some of the dumbest decisions you will ever see anyone make. And I know you're not supposed to use words like dumb in church. So before anybody calls the preacher police, remember I call the decision dumb, not the person dumb. Listen, how many of you know that is not necessarily a good thing when someone tells you, man or girl, you are just so in love? Listen, so many times when people come to us and they tell us that, man, you just so in love, what they're saying is they see the choices we're making, they see the sacrifices that we're making, and they know that we're being led astray by something that's not authentic. Listen, and listen well, I want you to know this morning that love is one of the tactics that Satan has used since the beginning of time to destroy our lives. How? Because Satan knows, the enemy knows, that if he could just get our hearts attached to the wrong thing, to the wrong person, to the wrong circumstance, he doesn't have to worry about us growing in our relationships with God and diminishing the impact and the influence that he has on our lives. See, the reality of it is that Satan doesn't care about us loving God just as long as we love something else or someone else just a little bit more. See, the real battleground, the real arena for our spiritual health and our spiritual lives take place in the heart. That's why Proverbs 4 and 23, and I'm reading from the New International Version right now. That's why it says, above all else, guard your heart. For everything you do flows from it. The New King James Version says it like this: keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. So if we were to take both of those translations and to merge them and mush them together a little bit, the Bible is saying, above all else, with diligence, guard and keep your heart. Look, it did not say, here's one more thing to consider, or one more thing to talk about, or one thing you might want to process. It says, above all else, above anything, before everything, guard your heart. See, as pastor, I've seen people try to get serious about bettering their lives and serving God. And then Satan sends this nice person. They smell good, they look good, and Satan sends that person their way. And because they didn't take this verse seriously, because they didn't put this verse inside of their hearts led them right out of alignment with God. Listen, hear me and grasp this wisdom. It's free. When our hearts latch on to someone or something, it's not easy to let them or it go, especially when it's the wrong something or the wrong someone. Listen, the more wrong it is, the more wrong they are, the more difficult it is to separate away from it. Listen, in the Old Testament, people worship idols. My phone is still playing music. Can somebody just go hit stop on my phone? In the Old Testament, people worshiped idols. And idols were things that people looked to get an edge in life. Idols were things that people convinced that these things were able like to prop them up. People felt like if I give myself to this, if I allow myself to be taken over towards this thing, in the long run, it's going to help me get ahead, or it's going to help me to get something in life that I really want. So having an idol, it's almost like having a God with a little g in your back pocket that you can pull out whenever you thought God with a big G wasn't listening or wasn't moving fast enough. So I don't like what's happening to me. I don't think God hears me, so I can pull out God with a little g to usurp God with the big G. Anybody else have that little g God in your purse or your wallet right now? Listen, as Bishop T.G. Jakes says, you better loose that thing and let it go. Listen, idols, and I'm trying to get you to see this morning. I'm trying to get those of you out there. I'm trying to get those of you in here to save yourself some of the pain and some of the heartache that so many of us have already walked through. Listen, idols, in whatever disguise they might come in, they steal our hearts, and then we grow dependent upon them. And we start thinking and we convince ourselves that we can't do anything without them. We get to this place of believing in them, and we see them as just a normal part of our everyday living. When I get up in the morning, I need to make sure I cut my tracker on, because she says that loving her, she needs to know where I am at all times. Come on, somebody. That ain't love, that's control. It's not love, that's control. Well, he said that if I really loved him, I would call him every night before I fall asleep. Well, I'm tired. I just fell asleep tonight. That's not love. That's manipulation. Listen, but get this. God sees an idol for what it truly is. And let me help us all today. An idol is anything, any person, any place that causes us to push inside of our hearts, to push God back to number 2, number 3, number 4, number 10, or whatever spot it may be, other than number 1 in our lives. An idol is anything that causes us to put God in any other place rather than number 1 in our lives. Let me make it more plain for you. If your spouse is number 1 in your life, then your spouse has become an idol. If your children are number 1 in your lives, then your children have become an idol. Anything, any place, anyone that pushes God from the number 1 spot represents an idol. Yes, sir. Listen, every morning I get up, before I can ask Michelle what she might need, before I can begin to anoint my children by pressing in to see what they need, the first thing I do God, thank you for waking me up this morning. God, you are so wonderful. God, you are so awesome. Now, God, I thank you for blessing me with this wife. I thank you for blessing me with my children. I thank you for friends. I thank you for people that love and care about me. Now, God, now that I've submitted myself to you, which direction should I move as your son this morning? Is my first task to check in on my friends. It's my first task to check up on my children. If my first task is to love my wife. And what I found is when you completely submit yourself to him, he will guide you into being the person that you need to be to whom at the right time. Listen, family, that's why the first commandment of the 10 commandments and the commandment, interestingly enough, that's broken most often is the one that says, you shall have no other God before me. Yeah. See, an idol has a greater claim on our hearts. And an idol has more of our affection than God does. Now, we may not be aware of it, but idol worship is something that all of us struggle with as believers. Why? Because there's always something, there's always someone, there's always some place that is trying to attract and to woo our hearts. Listen, idolatry is when I take anything that isn't God and put it in the place where only God belongs. Yeah. Let me say that for you one more time. Idolatry is when I take anything that is not God and I place it in the place where only God belongs. And let me blow your mind. We even make idols of ourselves sometimes. It sounds like this when we're caught up in self-idolatry. It sounds like this. Listen, I don't care what nobody say or think. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna do what I want to do because it's my life, and ain't nobody gonna tell me how to live my life, and ain't nobody gonna live my life for me, and my mama ain't gonna tell me what to do, and my daddy ain't gonna tell me what to do, and my sister or brother ain't gonna tell me what to do because it's my life, and I'm gonna do it the way I don't want to do it, and ain't nobody and can't nobody tell me how to live my life. And to quote this great theologian by the name of DJ Khaled, God did. Listen, family, God created us to love and to worship. Let me say that for you one more time. God created us to love, and he created us to worship. Yeah. Look, everybody in here loves something, and everybody in here and everybody out there worships something. And what happens is that Satan comes along and he uses this God-given natural desire to love and to worship, and then he turns it into something that he can destroy us with. Yes. See, the enemy does this by getting us and by convincing us to love and to worship the wrong things. See, there's nothing wrong with our love. There's nothing wrong with our worship. What happens is that our love and our worship are on the wrong thing, and they get us out of kilter. They get us out of whack. See, the truth is this. The human heart, our hearts, they have the ability to create all kinds of competition for God in our lives. Our hearts, the way that we're wired, the way that we move, we have the ability to create competition for God in almost every area of our lives. And those things, those exact things right now, they're in our heads right now, trying to distract us and trying to press mute on everything that's being spoken into the atmosphere right now. Right now, you don't have to nod in agreement. I know it because as I speak it, the enemy is trying to do the same thing to me. He's trying to get us distracted and he don't know what he's talking about. Or just, and we try to mute that thing to minimize the pricks that God are sending to our hearts right now at this moment. Listen, a theologian, we're about done for the day. We're going to make this into two parts. A theologian by the name of John Ortberg, he said amongst many, there are at least primarily 7 idols that keep coming up in American culture that we're identified by. And his theory is this, is that these idols take turns challenging our hearts on a rotating basis. So at some point or another, but almost at every point, one of these 7 things that I'm about to illuminate take turns becoming idols in our lives. And the reality of it is that I agree with his assertion. We'll give you these 7 idols and then we're done today. The first idol of that 7 is money. An idol that all of us deal with is money. Now, hear me. Money is a good thing. See, sometimes we allow church to convince us that money is bad. Money within itself is not bad. Yeah. Now, money, hear me good. Money is a good thing. And it's very good to have more of it than you actually need. Yeah. But there comes a point, though, where if we don't know contentment and we don't exercise discipline, greed steps in. And that's when money becomes a problem. See, when greed steps in, the desire for money changes into the goddess of money. And listen, I've been there in my life. And once you give that goddess your love and you give her your devotion, she takes over. And at the root of the love of her is all kinds of evil. We simply can't get enough of her. We get caught up, wrapped up, and consumed by her. And some of us will do almost anything to make more of her. Listen, love for God and love for people get lost. And once we dance with this goddess and she woos us and she controls us, our lives only become about all of what I can get for me. The second idol, that's number 1, money. Number 2, the second idol is success. Success. Now, listen, I don't know who in here and who out there doesn't want to be successful. All of us want to be successful. There again, there is nothing wrong with desiring to be successful. But when I love and worship success, to the point where I will backstab, to the point where I will lie and cheat to get my position and to keep my position, then I am worshiping the goddess of success and I will destroy others to advance myself. Anybody know anybody that's okay? Moving right along. The third idol is intelligence. Number 1, money. Number 2, success. Number 3, intelligence. You ever hear people or you see them? And they always brag about how smart their children are and how smart their spouse were. And we went to you wouldn't know anything about it because everybody don't get invited. But we were at this place last night, and all of the who's who were there, and you ever hear them or see them and they brag and they post on social media about which schools not only they attended, but the ones that they turned down and third, intelligence. Number 4, the fourth idol is attractiveness or beauty. Attractiveness or beauty. Now, I believe due in part to social media, The world is caught up in this thing bad right now. Listen, everybody should want to look nice. Everybody. This is the way my dad used to tell me all the time, listen, you never know who you're going to meet when. So always be ready to make a first impression. Yeah, I see. I'm one of those dudes that might even when I go cut the grass, when I go wash my car, I have on grass cutting clothes, I have on car wash clothes, but even my grass cutting clothes and my car washing clothes are coordinated. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just how I was raised, you know what I mean? So yeah, I may have on a t-shirt that got stains and holes in it, but I'm gonna iron it before I even put it on. Yeah, I'm that guy. Everybody should want to look their best. There's Todd and David. They've traveled with me, and they know firsthand that I can primp and preen with the best of them. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna get me together. Don't worry about it. But there's something wrong when we just have to be and have to look perfect. Listen, there's something wrong when we're spending money and going through all kinds of physical pain to make it happen through all kinds of surgeries. We got the BBLs and the this, that, and the other, and this, This is one of those moments I wish the camera wasn't on. I mean, yeah.
We got you.
Yeah.
We know.
I mean, and don't y'all know that God is a wonderful sculpture? Sculpture word, or God does good work, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And you're not going, anybody else watch the Cosby Show? Yeah. What was the superhero on Cosby Show? See if y'all really watched it. The Cosby Kids. What was the superhero?
The Brown Hornet.
My man. Y'all remember the Brown Hornet? Y'all remember Brown Hornet? Okay. So look here. If your legs look like Brown Hornet, God doesn't do his work that way. Hear me. We are all going to get older. Doesn't matter if you dye your hair, if you dress in a way that you shouldn't, if you pull, if you tuck, if you nip, we are all going to get older. And let me give you a secret that the seasoned saints in this place have obviously mastered, and they could actually teach a class on. The best way to look good when you're older is to live right when you're younger.
Amen. That's the word.
Yeah. Listen, as much as you may love, as much as you worship beauty, let me tell you, it is going to fade away. The fifth idol is a relationship. The fifth idol is a relationship. Listen, it's very easy. Matter of fact, it's beyond easy to give another person a place in your life that only belongs to God. The approval or the acceptance of that other person means more to you than being right and in a right relationship with God. Listen, so many of us, we will destroy the things that God has for us. We will damage our future and our destinies because if for a window, we are more concerned about him and her liking us with him and her being okay with us, with him or her and being in a relationship with them more so than being in a right relationship with God. Listen to me. That person, if you do this, that person and that relationship has become an idol. And you're actually loving it and you're worshiping it because God is not in control of your life. Number 6, and we're almost done for the day. The 6th idol is pleasure. Number 6 is pleasure. Listen, God created us with the ability to enjoy sensations of pleasure. But the unguarded heart, the undisciplined heart will seek pleasure from both legitimate and illegitimate sources. Hear me, hear me, hear me, hear me. Just because it looks good and smells good and feels good does not mean that it is good. The reality is that we can lift pleasure. We can elevate that thing to such a level that life becomes all about us and how we feel. And we neglect all other responsibilities. We neglect all other people so that we can have that feeling just one more. Listen, I don't care what it costs me. I don't care what I destroy. I want to feel that thing one more time. The 7th idol is work. Idol number 7, work. Let that resonate for a minute, because now, it's like, whoa, wait. Yeah. See, God created us to work. But what God did not do is create work to consume our lives. Trying to get ahead in the company or trying to get ahead in life causes us to turn work into an idol. Let me look at the camera now, because I'm getting some funny looks in here. See, what happens is when I'm talking about work becoming an idol, we love that thing and we worship that thing with the hopes that in return it's going to offer us a certain lifestyle. It's going to afford, if I love it enough and if I worship it enough, it's going to afford me to live in this exclusive zip code. And our love and worship of it causes us to miss opportunities to have an impact on the lives of the people closest to us. Now, listen, I know you got to work, and sometimes the job is going to make you work overtime. Sometimes the job is going to be placed in a situation where you have to miss something with your spouse or with your children. Listen, I'm not being unrealistic. What I'm speaking about here is when work becomes literally our God. We wake up with work on the brain. We at work with work on the brain. We drive home with work on the brain. We lay in bed at night with work on the brain. Listen, and here's the funny thing about it. That workplace that we love, it's not going to be there to comfort us on the other end when we realize that we're work rich and relationship poor. Yeah. You're not going to be able to snuggle up in the bed at night next to work. Work's not going to be able to take care of you when you're going to live it older in life. Listen, years ago, we're about done for the day. Years ago, my mom preached this sermon. And it was so interesting to me. She preached this sermon. Anybody remember when she preached that sermon? I'm talking about, this had to be almost 30 years ago. She preached a sermon called 2 Boxes and a Bag. Anybody remember that sermon? She preached a sermon called 2 Boxes and a Bag. And what two boxes in a bag did is that it had to do with the sobering reality that the job that she loved and lived for did not live for her and was going to continue on without her after her retirement. And after all of those years, and after all of those sacrifices, and out of all of the things that she missed for my dad and for my brother and I trying to advance at the workplace, she left that place on her final day of employment, which she thought was a big part of her life. She left that place after all of those years, after all of those heartaches. She left that place with two boxes in a bag. Listen, think about these 7 idols that we just talked about: money, success, intelligence, attractiveness, relationship, pleasure, and work. And what we need to begin to do is to ponder which one or which ones Satan is most likely using to manipulate our lives. Which one is sad, or which ones rather is Satan using as a tool in the battle of your heart? Which one or which ones do you feel like you just have to have, and without it or without them you would not be a complete person and life would not be without living? Which one is it? Which one have you decided that you want to be known for? Which one gets your greatest effort? Which one makes you feel like you're somebody? Which one will the ones closest to us look at us and say that that's your idol? Listen, now, if you're honest, and if you're willing to be honest, you can see what God's greatest competition is in your life. And dealing in honesty and dealing with truth, it puts us on the path to forgiveness and recovery. And setting on that path, beginning that journey, is a good place for us to stop today. Listen, please come back next week or tune in next week for the conclusion of this message and the deliverance contained in it. God bless you. Now, listen, before we go, we're talking about Valentine's and we're talking about love. And there may be someone in this place, there may be someone out there that is watching right now or watching at a later time. And when you hear all this talk about God and how the enemy decides to use at this moment in honor really of Valentine's, I would say to you that if you have not given your life to God, that would be the most awesome Valentine gift for yourself. Listen, and it's not that deep. It's not that complicated. You don't have to run. You don't have to flip, dip, foam at the mouth or anything. The only thing you have to do is say, God, I love you. God, please come into my heart. So if that is you, I offer you that declaration. Tune in next week so we can continue to walk out the journey of who has your. Oh, and one more thing. Listen, and don't nobody try to play me. Don't use this and say that pastor said that, about idols. Still go buy the chocolate, still go buy the roses, still go buy the cards. If you haven't made the reservation, you still got time to make one. Don't try to put that on me. All right. Listen, God bless you. See you next week.
You ever hope and pray that a sermon